for High River and then Calgary-Buffalo.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I just wanted to point out first and foremost that I've been sitting here since 7:30 p.m. This is the first chance I've got to get up. It's now 10 to 1 o'clock in the morning. And so this closure, it not only is undemocratic, but it interferes with my ability to do my job as an MLA, right? I was elected to sit in this seat. Lord knows I spent a lot of time, hundreds of hours, hundreds of volunteers, many years of hard work to speak in this legislature for the people that I represent. Right. And so when these people put closure and those undemocratic things there, they get in the way of me and my ability to do my job. I find that offensive, Mr. Speaker, and certainly we will fight on every turn to defeat that kind of behavior. And so with Bill 46, I think it's important, and I was trying to think of a different perspective, having listened to so many people here this evening, and I think part of what we need to look at here, ladies and gentlemen here in the legislature, is the fabric of our civil service, right? And the idea that our civil service is an essential service. Lots of people use empty words about that, but you can only truly build up that civil service if you pay them in an equitable way that fits in with the economy of the place, in the jurisdiction in which they're functioning. And so here in the province of Alberta, Mr. Speaker, we have an economy that is growing exponentially. We have a population that's growing exponentially as well. We hear about that a lot in this legislature. But we do not, Mr. Speaker, have a civil service that is growing commensurate with the population, and nor is their wages growing in keeping with the growth of our economy. And so that is unsustainable in the most fundamental way. And you know that we attract people into civil service because it is a people-oriented job mostly, right? And so you attract people that have a certain demeanor. They want to help. They want to somehow make a contribution to our society. But they demand and know that that has to be reciprocated from their employer, that they have to be compensated in a fair way, and that they have something that they can count on. Yes, working in public service has a certain amount of security that maybe some other jobs don't have. But you pay for that security by maybe a lower wage, and you pay as well by some compromises you make through how that wage is determined. And so after 30 years of arbitration as being the norm for determining what those wage and working conditions are, to breach that confidence, to somehow suddenly hit up against a stone wall to say that you're no longer going to use that normal system of determining wages and working conditions by bringing forward some draconian, ridiculous legislation like this Bill 46, absolute piece of garbage, as far as I'm concerned. You are breaking the trust with those public servants, and Lord knows it'll take you a long time if you ever regain that trust again with those same people. I know that there's public servants that have spent half the evening up here watching this sort of spectacle take place. And I have to say, although there's certain individuals in here that do a fantastic job, a lot of it is quite embarrassing. Because we're not talking about the substance of why these people are up here watching and the many thousands of workers who are watching the deliberation of this debate. They're not watching for the empty words of saying, oh, we sure do like you, public servants, right? They're looking to look after their families, to make sure that there's a wage that they can live on here in the province of Alberta that can actually pay for the bills that they need to pay every month. Simple as that. And you know, when I start looking at the wages that are being paid here in this province, because the economy is growing. You'd never know it from being in here. You'd think we're living in some kind of the 1930s Dust Bowl recession, the way these people like to talk about absolute nonsense, the greatest threat to whatever. You know, it's because you're too cheap to collect the revenues that we need to actually pay for the government services in this province, right? You want to redirect that money somehow magically to I don't know where. A lot of it just gets lost, I think. But anyway, the last time I could find some figures that could reflect the differential between a public employee in this province was 2010 making an average of $57,000. And the average salary for a non-unionized public sector management person was more than $150,000, Mr. Speaker, in the same place during that same time period. And so you have this differential, this inequality, this inequity, and we're only exacerbating that by, as I say, this piece of garbage bill, Bill 46, bringing in something like whatever it is here, 0, 0, 1, and 1. I mean, how could you possibly think you can get away with that? That is not going to pass any muster test of legality, right? And it's some way to send, some lost message that you're still the conservative party of draconian, beat on the workers party, right? People don't believe that anymore, right? You've lost that title, right, to somebody else, and you've lost the trust of the people that could deal with that anyway. And when I've been listening for the last 48 hours as well about bringing in the doctors' agreement and the teachers' agreement and stuff. I mean, what a bunch of garbage, really. The doctors' agreement, say, for example, here it is over the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years, okay? Yes, they took a 0% increase over this year. Oh, well, there you go. They also got a $68 million lump sum to somehow lubricate that zero, make them feel a bit better about themselves, right? The next year, they get a 2.5% increase. Reasonable and normal, I would say. I'm not going to, be feeling anything against the doctors getting that rate. The year after that, 2.5% again. Again, probably meeting that cost of living COLA index in some reasonable way. Who knows where the economy is going at this point, but it's certainly growing. We know that for sure, growing at a normal rate, which is good. And then the year after that, the fourth year, again, cost of living, COLA, is written right into their agreement. Okay, so I mean, that's not 0, 0, 1, and 1, and that's based on a level that started off very high for doctors, I would venture to say. It's nothing like $57,000. It's the average wage. I think it's at least $300,000 for the average doctor. So there's one mythology that I wish you would stop talking about. If anybody tries to do that next in their so-called speeches over there, I will be sure to shout you down, and the Speaker will be very upset about that, I'm sure. The teachers' agreement, I'm talking about the teachers' agreement. Well, that's not, it was an agreement, that was legislated on the teachers, right? Quite frankly, with heaping helpings of this sort of guilt and, veiled threats and all of these other things. And even so, they still had to legislate that agreement. So, I'm seeing a trend here. I'm seeing a story that is being written, and the story is fiction, right? I'm an English literature teacher, and I can see people constructing a story which is fine when you're maybe writing a novel, but when you're actually legislating people's lives, that is not acceptable. And the story is trying to somehow suggest that, oh, well, we're living within our means, and we, we have to make these tough choices, like this is a family, like we're living in a sitcom or something. I mean, that's not even reasonable either, because we know, like I said before, that this economy is growing here in the province of Alberta. People with eyes to see and living in the economy like we do, we all know that this government last week announced that they have a surplus of over $1 billion this year. Okay, and that's a significant improvement over projections, and it's because the economy is growing. Whoop-de-doo, as if we can't see that with our own eyes. We work hard to build an energy economy here and diversify our economy, and we certainly don't want to leave our civil service further behind than when they are at this present time, right? And so, on a very practical level, even if you're just looking dispassionately at the situation here in Alberta, there's no need for wage austerity at this time in the province. There's no logical reason, there's no economic reason, and certainly it only pushes back that differential, as I say, between the wages of our public service and the rest of the economy, making them ostensibly poorer with the 0%, 0%. 0% is not level, it's a cut. For the years 2000 to 2010, Mr. Speaker, this province had the lowest public sector wages compared to gross domestic domestic product of any province in the country. So for those of you over there who don't have an idea about what gross domestic product is, right, it's all of the sum total of the goods and services that are produced in an economy, right? And it reflects if the wages and that gross domestic product start to separate from themselves, then you end up in a unsustainable situation, right? So you think that, oh, well, are we doing so well? It's all relative to how much is being produced and what the cost to live in a given place, right? And so, yeah, sure, we have higher wages for some teachers than other provinces, but it costs more to live here. So that's perfectly normal. And so, Mr. Speaker, I just had so many things that popped into my mind about this. Bill 45 as well, I missed that boat entirely, again, because of this ridiculous closure thing that I just don't like very much at all. I'm sure they'll manage to get in eventually, though. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I just wish that I didn't have this Bill 46 in my hand. I wish that we could move forward with the arbitration that was in fact scheduled to take place here in a couple of months, right? It's not as though, oh, well, we've come to an impasse and the AUPE won't come to the table and all this. I mean, that's all utter nonsense. They're happy to negotiate. We all know what the end game is. We've been doing it for 30 years. It's all, well, oh, well, we'll get all blustery and so forth. The arbitrator comes in, we get a reasonable deal, and away we go, right? Instead, suddenly, we run up across this brick wall in the last week of our legislative assembly here, thank you, where you want to do this big fight, And so it seems so artificial, but Lord knows it's deadly real for the people who have to face the pay cuts that will come as a result of this Bill 46. And so I will stand in opposition to that. I will stand united with the people, the growing number of people. You think you can divide the public service away from the general economy? You're dead wrong on that, right? I was in Calder on Saturday and Sunday, and they all said, Dave, go get him and give him hell. And by golly, that's what I'm here to do tonight. And I will do it tomorrow afternoon, and I will do it tomorrow night again, and I will do it tomorrow afternoon, and then tomorrow night again. And until we can resolve this issue, maybe if I had one too many nights in there, maybe I'll be there by myself. That's the only thing. And maybe I counted wrong. But anyway, so that's my feelings on this, Mr. Speaker, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Honourable members, 29 2A is available. I have Goldbar followed by